Committee will come to order. Clerk, open the roll. Let's see who's here and who's not here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
That's the best attendance record we've had all year. Look at that. Oh, wait. No, reopen the roll. I want this one time. Reopen the roll. Now, sir, look. 100% attendance. Everybody gets a star. Welcome. Welcome to the last meeting. I know you guys are all disappointed of the Senate Committee on Local Government. I will miss all of you until the proffer party. For those that are interested, proffer party, the special meeting of this committee will be the day before we reconvene, and we're trying to work out the time and place where we'll take up all the proffer bills and take argument and evidence from both local governments and also those other stakeholders who have an interest in the bills that were proposed and we've carried over for the year. We've got 16 bills left on the docket. One I think we can take care of very quickly, HB 1500. That would be Delegate Nick Rush.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're here.
Yes, sir.
We're just going to take care of it.
Go ahead.
All right. Now, HB 1500 is identical.
I've still got to take care of your bill over at appropriations.
It's identical to Senate Bill 821, Senator Edwards, which passed out of this committee 13-0, passed the Senate 40-0. So I think you're in good shape, actually. So what we're going to do, so you wouldn't have to sit here and watch all the fun, is I think based on what we've already considered, based on Senate Bill 821, this deals with the New River Valley Emergency Communications Regional Authority, is I would entertain a motion to report. Motion to report being made and supported by a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, clerk open the roll.
Twelve ayes, 1 nay.
12 ayes, 1 nay. HB 1500 reports from this committee. That's how it's done.
Thank you.
Delegate Rush, it's always great to see you, my friend.
Well, it's always great to see you, and I hope the committee will note that I was prompt and on time.
Absolutely. That will be noted in the record. Clerk, please note that Delegate Rush was on time and prompt.
And lying doesn't help.
All right, now, the next bill I think we can take up is HB 220.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Delegate Morefield, this bill concerns exemptions from tax for industry and companies coming into your area. Is that right? Oh, no, this is another bill. Oh, I didn't know you had another bill.
I only wish it was before this committee.
I didn't know you even had another bill. That's the only bill I thought you had all year, the way you talked. All right, Delegate Morefield, it appears that this bill is similar to a bill that we had heard previously by Senator Ben Chafin. The number, Dave? SB 371. Dave, tell us what maybe some of the differences might have been, if any. Give us a rundown.
Mr. Chairman, it's largely technical in the way that it was drafted, but they're both getting at the same idea of allowing localities to establish systems of other boating and waterways for recreation, and then exempting those facilities from liability.
Delegate Morefield, what we probably would do here is conform your bill to his, and if there's any differences that you find, then we can send it into conference and get it out. I mean, I think Chafin's bill was reported unanimously, was it not, or close to? 12-1. And then it passed the Senate, did it not?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, 37-3.
So either way, we have a lot of hope for your bill and its future.
Thank you.
And going to the governor. Is that acceptable to you, Delegate?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do I have a motion to conform HB 220 to Chafin's? Motion being made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman.
Uh-oh. So hold on. Senator Serville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the patron, I think.
Yes, Senator Serville.
It's my understanding that one of our more anti-immunity legislators over on your side, who chairs the Civil Subcommittee, might have had a change to yours, or maybe it was the Senator Marsden's, I think. And I wanted, do you have any idea whether that's happened on Senator Chafin's bill?
Mr. Chairman, I do not believe that pertains to this bill. That bill was in reference to Senator Marston's bill, which specifically mentions, and I apologize, I just had this conversation with him a few minutes ago, to immunity specifically, and so that was referred to House courts, and I don't know where that bill is right now. So this.
Okay, but as far as your further question, Mr. Chairman? But as far as you're aware, Senator Chafin's bill as it left here is coming out of the House the same as the one it left here?
Yes.
Okay.
Senator Serba, further? The question that this chairman would have for the committee, which legislator wears the 5 o'clock shadow better, Moorfield or Surville? Clerk, open the roll. Green for Surville, red for Moorfield. No? Oh, it sounds like you guys can't choose. Okay. All right, Delegate Moorfield, with your permission, we don't want to do anything you don't want to do. Certainly want this bill going to the governor's desk. Is that
Yes,
okay
sir.
for you? Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
We've got a motion and a second to conform and report. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, open the roll.
Twelve ayes, one nay.
12 ayes, 1 nay. House Bill 220 as conformed is reported, and that will be on the floor, and I guess I'm going to have to speak to it. Thanks, Scotty. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So make sure I have a summary so I know what I'm talking about, all right there, big guy?
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
And we thank you for all your help to Southside and Southwest Virginia with your other economic bills. We really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Oh, first in the queue, Congressman Ben Klein. Delegate Ben Klein. Got ahead of myself. Delegate Klein, welcome.
Chairman, well, thank you very much. I always enjoy coming before the.
Delegate Klein, we want to make sure that you know that because of what happened last year, we have stapled Senator Hanger's feet to the floor here, so he's here right now for this vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can't guarantee what he's going to do, but at least he's here.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
I have before you a bill you have seen before that would ensure that federal immigration law is enforced in the Commonwealth. It's a matter of simply enforcing the current law and no more, no less. So I would commend it to you and be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of the patron? Hold on. Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. You said that this bill is to ensure that federal law is enforced, but it's my understanding that under federal law, localities are authorized to, but not required to enter into 287G agreements. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that's correct. It is left to the locality to decide whether they want to sign up and agree, enter into an agreement with the federal government to participate in a 287G program.
And I have a series of questions, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
Okay. And to my knowledge, that is the only federal law that authorizes localities to enforce federal immigration law. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that that is the most prominent one. I'm not aware of others that actually provide powers to local government to actively enforce federal immigration law. But what we have seen are localities that either neglect to cooperate with or stand in the way or enact policies that are that inhibit the ability of federal law enforcement to enforce the immigration laws.
Would follow up, Mr. Chair? I'm going to take that as a yes. So the 10th Amendment.
Senator McClellan.
Thank you. So the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution contains what's known as an anti-commandeering requirement. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
And that, as interpreted by the courts, basically say that state and local governments cannot be required to enact or administer federal regulatory programs. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of it, Senator.
Okay. And is there any federal law that requires a state or local government to comply with an ICE detainer request?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that that federal law does place requirements on localities to cooperate with federal law enforcement and immigration when they are seeking to enforce their immigration detainers. So I would say that to a degree, yes, but is there a specific statute? No.
Is an ICE detainer in and of itself a warrant?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say it is a warrant of sorts, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would actually dispute
Senator
that.
McClellan.
It is my understanding under federal law, an ICE detainer is not a warrant, and it cannot provide a lawful basis for arrest or detention in and of itself by state or local government.
Is that a question, Senator McClellan?
It's I guess, a correction.
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that
Well, rather than getting into a legal debate here, let's just question the patron and see how far it goes.
Okay. So under your bill, is restrict defined anywhere in your bill or in the code?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that I believe it speaks for itself in that if they fail to allow ICE to enforce its own detainers, then they would be restricting.
Is it your interpretation that a locality that declines to enter into a voluntary 287G enforcement agreement, is that a policy or procedure that restricts the enforcement of federal immigration laws?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that while I think that 287G programs are beneficial to the locality, and as a prosecutor in Harrisonburg, I operated under a 287G program where I prosecuted illegal immigrants who were, and because of that 287G program, they were not released and deported after their convictions instead of released into the community. I think it's beneficial, but that is left to each locality, and this bill would not change that. It would, however, end policies such as the one in Arlington County where a warrant is required before an ICE detainer can be served, and those kinds of policies that interfere or inhibit with the application of federal immigration law would be prevented.
Is there any federal law or court case that prohibits a locality from requiring a warrant to be issued before an ICE detainer is served?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'd say there's not a court case to establish that, but it would run counter to this bill.
And again, I'm still not clear, would it be, because these are probably going to have to be litigated in court. And as you know, there are some localities, and the city of Richmond is one of them, that have expressly declined to enter into voluntary enforcement 287G agreements. And is it a court could interpret that to be a procedure or policy that restricts the enforcement of federal immigration law, couldn't it?
Because of the voluntary nature of the 287G program, Mr. Chairman, I'd say that that is unlikely, but anything is possible when you have a court case pending.
So other than Arlington County's requirement for a warrant, which they are not prohibited under federal law from doing, is there any other example of a local government policy, ordinance, or procedure that you are targeting with this legislation?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that while there are no policies in local code, I believe that there are local policies within local law enforcement agencies and others in some localities in the Commonwealth that run awfully close to that.
Could you give me an example, please?
Because they come from news accounts as opposed to my actual knowledge on the ground, I hesitate to call out a single locality, but I would say that I've come across a few in the news. And I think that it's the policy of the Commonwealth. Once this policy is in place, I think you will see fewer of those municipalities walking up to and potentially crossing the line into obstructing federal law and federal immigration authorities from enforcing the law.
Last set of questions. As you know, under the Virginia Constitution and state law, we have a compulsory K-12 education requirement that is not tied to citizenship, right?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that's correct.
So if I'm a principal, and as we all know, our local school divisions are very concerned about litigation. If I'm a principal and a family comes to enroll their child in school, and I may have some doubt as to their citizenship status or their legal status, and I don't do anything about it, is that a policy that could be interpreted to restrict the enforcement of federal immigration laws to the full extent permitted by law?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that this is less focused on that scenario than it is on the enforcement of the law as it applies to criminals and criminal activity. But if a locality is to adopt a policy whereby employees of that municipality are instructed to prevent or interfere with the enforcement of federal immigration policy, then I would say yes.
Final question, Mr. Chair. I was about to call you Mr. President.
You can try that, that's fine. And you could ask your question.
So I guess
7 o'clock.
I'm a little confused where this says a policy that restricts the enforcement of federal immigration laws to less than the full extent permitted by federal law. I don't understand how you can interpret that anything other than if you have a choice to enter into a 287G agreement and you don't do it, then are you restricting the enforcement of federal immigration law less than to the full extent of the law? And what's the penalty if a locality violates this?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that my reading is that the decision is still up to the locality to enter into the 287G program. The enforcement was a restriction of funding that was removed in the House.
Thank you. Speak to the bill at the appropriate time.
Let's just keep with the question. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is either for the patron or for staff. The way you have it worded here, you say that no locality shall adopt an ordinance or policy that restricts the enforcement. It sounds like a proactive action. That's a fair statement. I believe there's a supremacy clause in our U.S. Constitution where a locality or a state cannot proactively, if you will, adopt a law that would interfere with federal enforcement, period. I mean, is that a fair interpretation?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that the supremacy clause would prevent a locality from contradicting a federal immigration law, but interfering with that law is a shade of gray that I think we're seeing across the country and even in the Commonwealth. And this would not only send a signal, but also put into code the fact that that's not allowed.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
Thank you. I mean, you use the word restrict, which is different than interfering or any shade of gray. I would say that the point you may be trying to make has already been enshrined in our Constitution, and it appears that your intent is to really direct local governments in terms of determining what they should or should not do in keeping their communities safe. Is that fair?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that it is the policy is a Dillon rule state for the General Assembly to make the law on a statewide basis so that it is evenly applied across the Commonwealth, and this law would continue in that vein and ensure that every locality enforced the law equally and across the board.
Mr. Chairman, one final question. Wouldn't you agree that,
Senator Favola.
thank you, that localities bear the responsibility of protecting our neighborhoods and our communities? It is really the local police, it's local law enforcement that bears the responsibility of keeping you safe in your community, keeping me safe in my community. And it is the responsibility of locally elected leaders to set policies that enable their law enforcement to do that job. Would you agree with that?
Mr. Chairman, I would agree that on the ground, it is the responsibility of local law enforcement to enforce the laws on a day-to-day basis. But it is the responsibility also of the General Assembly to set the policies that shall be enforced by the locality and by the local law enforcement agencies, and that includes the equal enforcement of our immigration laws across the board.
Again, Mr. Chairman, immigration laws are federal, and keeping individuals safe in our communities, that responsibility is local. And at the appropriate time, I'd be happy to explain the difference between the two roles.
Sounded like you're getting ready to do that. Let's wait and see if there are any other questions.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
see
Chairman.
Nobody in the queue. Anyone that hasn't asked a question of the patron who would desire to do so now? Seeing none. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Does anyone like to speak opposed to the bill? Step on up here, Coach. Hey, Budinsky. We had the secretary first.
I'm not coach, so I'll let.
I hate when people cut in line like that.
No, that's fine. Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, Secretary. How are you, sir?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brian Moran, Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. I'm sorry I don't get to appear before this committee more often. It's clearly a more fun committee than the Senate Courts Committee.
Thank you for saying
All
that.
having fun.
Yeah, we don't kill anything in here, actually. That's our problem.
This would be a good one to kill, but for all the reasons, I think both Senator Favola and Senator McClellan asked a number of questions which brought to light the many unintended and even intended consequences of this piece of legislation. So on behalf of the Northam administration, we oppose the bill, hope you would defeat the measure.
Any questions for the Secretary? Wow, I got away here easy. Next, please come step forward, identify yourself, welcome.
Good afternoon,
Oh,
Senators.
if that's my mom, tell her I'll call her back, okay?
My name is Ashley Shapiro, and I'm actually in Senator Sturdivant's district, and I am both a criminal practitioner and an immigration practitioner representing indigent defendants. I am deeply concerned about this particular legislation and specifically the efficacy of immigration detainers for many of the reasons Senator McClellan stated. Namely, I have concerns with commandeering, the anti-commandeering clause, forcing local jurisdictions to choose between violating our clients' constitutional rights versus complying with this law. This law, as I would read it, I would share the concern about 287G agreements in saying that if you do not comply to the full extent permitted by federal law, which is any possible option that the federal law offers, then you would be contravening this law, and it would severely limit the local jurisdiction's abilities to enforce their own laws and determine what is required under public safety for their laws. I also have very severe constitutional Fourth Amendment concerns in that an immigration infraction is a civil offense. This immigration detainers usually run afoul of that by holding people without probable cause of a crime. So many jurisdictions are choosing not to go that route and not to honor these detainers beyond merely informing the federal government.
Now, let me just ask you a question, because maybe I'm confused. You said immigration detention is a civil offense.
Being present unlawfully is a civil offense. It is
It's not a crime.
Not according to the United States Supreme Court.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, what a surprise. Senator Carrico.
So, being a immigration attorney, explain to me how someone who came from another country illegally into this country, the Constitution applies to them.
They have limited constitutional rights. They don't have the full constitutional rights. They do have Fourth Amendment protections. They do have due process rights. So they have search and seizure.
So I can violate the law in this country, be convicted of a violation, lose all my constitutional rights, but yet someone can come into this country illegally, violating the law to come here, and be afforded constitutional rights under the Fourth Amendment.
Well, I would argue the fact that even if you're convicted of a law, you lose all of your constitutional rights. There are still some constitutional protections even for those who have been convicted.
There's a lot of prisons that don't abide by the constitutional rights. I just
Yes,
thought I'd let you know.
I would argue that that's not constitutional. But yes, there are, if you come without permission, while that is a violation of civil law and you can be forcibly removed from this country, it is not a crime subject that you can actually be sentenced to a criminal sentence for it, unless you're charged with an immigration crime. And most immigration detainers are solely based on being present unlawfully and are merely a request from a local field agent to hold that person for ICE to come and get them, which is different than an actual warrant, which can be issued for an immigration crime, such as illegal reentry or a litany of other crimes that are actual federal crimes, and those are a different form than just a mere immigration detainer. So for those reasons, I would adamantly oppose this bill and ask the Senate committee to oppose it as well.
All right, Counselor, let me just ask you a couple questions, because I'm looking that up. That's an interesting point you make. And so it looks like the immigration law actually uses the word improper entry. Would you agree with that?
It depends
Rather than
on which law
illegal
you're looking
entry.
at.
I'm looking at Section 8, Title 8, Section 1325, USC,
Okay.
and Section 275, the INA. And I'm just kind of skimming through, and it says the first proper improper, and this is the notes. For the first improper entry offense, the person can be fined as a criminal penalty or imprisoned up to 6 months or both. For subsequent offenses, the person can be fined or imprisoned up to 2 years or both under 8 USC Section 1325 or INA Code Section 275. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I would agree with that. Illegal re-entry, so once a person's actually been deported, is a crime, and it is a crime for which you can receive a federal penitentiary sentence.
You will remove for
Being
convictions of
present-
3 more misdemeanors returning, remove for convictions of aggravated felonies and returning. Those are different crimes than just improper entry from what it looks like from this Section 8.
But that's even separate and apart from merely being present in the United States. So if someone is merely present in the United States, which also includes, for example, if someone came lawfully with proper permission on a visa, but then overstayed that visa, that person is improperly in the United States,
Which is in here
but it's
in,
not a crime.
which is in here in 8 USC 1325 Section I, which is about if you enter at a place other than one designated by immigration, that's a civil penalty.
Yes. And in my practice, practicing as a public defender, practicing in criminal law, the vast majority of these immigration detainers are for those who are just suspected of being unlawfully present in the country. And it is never signed by an independent Article III judge. There's no probable cause by a judicial authority. It's simply a request from a local field agent to hold the person.
And that renders that improperly entered person inadmissible to enter illegally. They have to leave and then go through the right channels.
They would have to do consular processing.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. Thank you for coming, too. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
For your time.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate. My name is Charlie Schmidt with the ACLU of Virginia. We also oppose this legislation. We opposed it last year, and for many reasons that have already been stated, can answer any other further questions, but basically we just wanted to reiterate that we oppose the measure.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in your advocacy. Oh, the line breaker.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My
Hello,
name is
Mr. Budinsky. How are you?
Yes, Kevin Maurer, Virginia Catholic Conference. We also have grave concerns about the bill. Specifically, if somebody has witnessed or been victim to a crime, can they trust their local police to investigate, and can they come forward without the local police coordinating closely with ICE if the local police feel that that's not in the best interest of solving this case? And Father Jack behind me will speak more to that. We feel this is an unwise and unfunded mandate on our localities, and we hope you'll oppose. Thank you.
We never do that here, unfunded mandates on the localities. Hello, Father.
Hi, good afternoon. Father Jack Paziello.
Forgive us, for we have all sinned here today. That'd be a lot of work and a lot of time. I know. Why don't you just get to what your point is?
From Sacred Heart Parish on the south side, Sacred Heart Center, we work with lots of people who live over in Southwood housing off of Hall Street. And I'm just here to say what great work that the Second Precinct has been doing over the past 2 or 3 years in that community that has had a lot of drug issues, gang issues, petty larceny and all. But they've gotten the confidence of the people by having officers walking the streets at night, officers who are of their own race and can speak the language. And whenever there is a a raid by ICE, all of a sudden the communication between the officers who are doing community patrolling and the people in the residence, it really starts to shut down. And I think the police are doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is community betterment. And so we at Sacred Heart support what the Catholic Conference, which we are part, says, and we're against this also. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
My name is Diego Arturo Obregoso. I'm from Limatamo, Peru. I'm with the Virginia Latina Advocacy Network, and we oppose this bill.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your advocacy. Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Jeanette, and I'm a constituent of Senator Donovan, and I just want to say that this bill would actually decline the the cooperation of immigrants to crimes. That means that they won't be likely to report a crime and it has shown around the country that these kind of bills are just, they intimidate every single person regardless of their immigration status. And also, it's heartbreaking as an immigrant myself, as I see my community, they just want to grow and they have given so much to the Commonwealth. That these kind of legislations are just going to divide the community instead of actually trying to work together. So I just leave you that with my thought.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Lana Heath Martinez. I work for the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. We're opposed to the bill, and I wanted to return to one of the points from the Catholic Conference about this being an unfunded mandate, and also to the patron's comments on his bill. He mentioned both that he thought this bill would force localities to enforce immigration laws in a uniform way, and he also said localities could have a choice between whether or not to enter into a 287G agreement. So I don't know which it is, but I do know that Prince William County, the only place with a 287G agreement, had to budget $26 million of their own localities' funds in order to fund their 287G agreement because it is not paid for by the federal government. So I think that this is definitely an unfunded mandate. I don't think it clarifies anything or makes it more uniform. So I wanted to mention that. There have also been several lawsuits against localities that have held people on ICE detainers without signed court orders. Most recently in Henrico County, a suit was settled last year for an immigrant who was held on an ICE detainer without the proper warrant. And that was in a long series of lawsuits that have taken place throughout the country. So I think that there's legal precedent to say that ICE detainer requests without the accompanying signed court order are not legally binding. They're nothing more than administrative requests. So those are the points I'd like to leave with you. And finally, just the fact that we represent people from over 36 faith traditions, and across the board, all of our faith traditions are opposed to legislation like this, because we think that we should be welcoming those who want to contribute to our communities, to our economy, to our society. So I'd urge you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sheldon Williams. I'm with Vizier, Virginia Coalition of Immigrant Rights, and we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon. Amanda Silcox, representing the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and for all the reasons previously stated, we oppose this bill.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Amber Hendricks. I'm a resident of Richmond. I oppose this bill. I appreciate Senator McClellan and Senator Favola's comments about the bill. I went to the first House hearing where the bill was presented, and I can say that I have no more clarity on what Delegate Klein's intention is with this bill than I did then, which was a couple weeks ago. I didn't hear an answer either to the question about what local schools would be required to do. My mother is a school teacher in Senator Stanley's district. I think there are serious concerns about the intent and the scope of this bill and how broadly it's written. It's bad public policy. I'm the child also of a Virginia police officer. It is not good to make local law enforcement more threatening to whole communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Nancy Ween, and I am a constituent of Senator Chase, and I oppose this bill. I hope everyone will vote against it for all the reasons already stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not instrument rated, though. I can't do anything, really.
Well done, well done. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Christiana Riederer. I am a constituent of Senator McClellan, and I strongly appreciate her comments. And I also oppose this bill for all the reasons stated and so many more. But I won't get into that because I will get very angry. So please oppose this bill.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Christopher Rashad Green. I'm an organizer with New Virginia Majority, and I oppose this bill also. Just to know, I was speaking with residents. I'm a resident of Richmond, but I've been speaking with residents all over the state. I was in Northern Virginia this weekend, and the stories are heartbreaking. Just to hear the stress and anxiety that people are going through, from students, families. So I definitely oppose this bill, and this is the right thing to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your advocacy and what you do. All right, anybody else? All right, delegate, do you need to close on this, or are you in good shape? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me look at the queue here. We're going to go in reverse order of those who have not spoken on this bill. Senator Carrico. No, sir, Senator Carrico. All right. If it was bacon flavored, you probably would remember that. All right, Senator Serville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to the bill.
Yes, sir.
So about 1 in 4 of the people that I represent in the 36th district were born in another country. And they see legislation like this as being an attack on them. That's the reaction I get. And not only them, but I have a lot of people who've lived in my district for their entire life who see this bill as an attack on the community that I represent. What I worry about when I see this, aside from the message that it sends, we've had specific situations in my district where ICE felt like they claim they haven't changed their enforcement policy, but they've decided they're going to come in looking for one guy at some place, and they end up walking out with 10. And it's clearly, I think, illegal, unconstitutional behavior by federal law enforcement officials. It violates not only the federal constitution, we also have a state constitution which has the Declaration of Rights in it, and being the state, which was the founding place for the Declaration of Rights, I take that very seriously. The federal government doesn't seem to have any regard for the Constitution when it's enforcing these laws. In addition to that, my local police departments expressed concern to me that ICE has decided that they're no longer going to wear jackets that say ICE, but they're going to wear jackets that say police. And that kind of behavior has created all kinds of confusion in the community and caused a lot of people in our community not even want to talk to the police who have been directed not to ask about immigration status. And so the federal government's activity is inhibiting local policing because of their behavior. And my concern is that if our local government, local police says anything about immigration to their local law enforcement, that your bill might be, or this bill might be interpreted as a violation of that bill. And so it creates all this opportunity for mischief and confusion surrounding something that's already a big mess because of the Trump administration and what they've decided, the policy that they've decided to change in terms of how they enforce things. And, you know, it's gotten so bad, I don't know if anybody remembers, but I think it was about three weeks after the inauguration last year, ICE decided to come into the 36th district and raid a hypothermia shelter. People that were trying to stay warm from the cold, the ICE agents hung outside and waited till they came outside and then picked up 8 guys, 6 of which were actually legal residents, took away 2 of them, but they ended up detaining 6 legal residents because they were trying to find people who were not legally present at a hypothermia shelter of all places because they were so desperate to, I guess, meet some quota. So I'm concerned about the message this sends to law enforcement, the opportunity it creates for problems with somebody potentially saying that some of the jurisdictions I represent are breaking the law. And the last thing I'll say is that I feel like legislation like this sends a really bad message to business about the values that Virginia stands for. And we saw what happened in North Carolina last year with regard to the bathroom bill. I think this kind of bill I think sends a similar kind of message. And when we're trying to recruit a company like Amazon to come here, this kind of bill tells Amazon that Virginia is not interested in folks coming into this country. And I know you're not directing it at people who are coming in legally. I get that. Or people that come in on whatever it is, M1 visas or whatever they are. You're not aimed at that. But the message that it sends, when the only states that are going in this direction are have very different policies, I just think it's not good for business, not good for jobs, and I don't think we should support it.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The largest part of my district is in Arlington. And Arlington's a very diverse community. Our residents speak 126 different languages. And when I was on the county board, Arlington actually adopted a resolution which said to our police force that we want you to use the best police policies possible, but to continue to build trust in our communities. And the resolution went on and said, we expect that the Constitution should be followed. And the intent, when we had the debate in front of the citizens, the county board had this debate, we wanted the U.S. Constitution followed. So if individuals were picked up for minor infractions, they should not be held against the requirements of the Constitution until ICE decides what to do with them. That's an incredible burden on jails. It is the wrong approach in terms of, on many levels, in terms of the respect for our Constitution, in terms of the respect for individuals in our communities, in terms of building the trust that's necessary to keep our neighborhoods safe. Had we not adopted that resolution, we really believe that the police would not have as much access to information about illegal activities. We believe that our residents would not have been as safe. If this bill were to be adopted, I think certain jurisdictions would then pause about sending a very legitimate message to their communities. I find this bill to be very divisive and ill-advised, and it's not how we build a strong Commonwealth. It's not how we move forward in a united way. It's not how we create the kind of Commonwealth that is welcoming and that where everybody flourishes, and yes, where businesses want to locate to. So I strongly urge my colleagues to vote against this bill, and I'm going to conclude my comments with that request.
Thank you, Senator Favola.
Mr. Chairman, I'm back on the queue if you...
Senator Kerko.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things that I want to speak about listening to Senator Servell and Senator Favola in their remarks. Los Angeles and Charlotte, North Carolina, two of the largest cities for MS-13 gangs. MS-13 gangs immigrate into regions like ours, especially down my way. Galax City was named in the top 200 cities in the nation for MS-13 influence. What these gangs do is they integrate in the communities where you do have immigrants that, whether they have a legal visa to be here or not, they migrate into those communities and they integrate into those communities so that they're able to run their drug traffic, they're able to human traffic, some of the largest human trafficking that's going on in Virginia are in rural areas. So without a law such as this that we see brought before us, if a locality wants to create a sanctuary city, then what you're doing is in essence protecting those gang members from ever being deported or anyone federally going in to remove. And then those crimes are committed, those murders, those rapes are committed, and you'll be the first one to cry out, why aren't we doing anything about this? Why aren't we doing more? Why isn't the federal government and why isn't the state government stepping up to take control of all these gang members? We see it come through the General Assembly time after time to address gang violence, to address all these things. But yet we want to sit here and say no to establishing a sanctuary city where they can go and they can live in peace without being deterred by law enforcement. And that really concerns me. And that really concerns me that the Secretary of Public Safety, knowing how much gang violence is in Virginia and how much MS-13 influence is here, would be opposed to this legislation. And I would hope that we would consider what this is going to do if we continue down this road. MS-13 human trafficking is real, and it's in Virginia. And the second largest influence of MS-13 is only 90 miles from the Virginia line. So think about what that does and how much drug trafficking that occurs along the I-95, I-81 corridor because of that. So if you want to say that these MS-13 gangs are fine, leave them in our city, don't do anything, don't send the feds in, then you'll vote against this bill. But if you're tired of it, you'll vote for it.
Thank you, Senator Carrico. Senator Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to speak to the bill.
Senator Chase.
In support of the bill. I just think that, we need to, as legislators, we write the laws, obviously. And I understand the sentiments of Senator Servell and others that have different types of communities, but I think no matter what kind of community we have, we need to ensure safe neighborhoods and communities and make sure that we are not protecting people who break the law, people that commit felonies and other laws. And what we're doing if we create a sanctuary city, what this is saying is that no locality shall adopt any ordinance, procedure, or policy that restricts the enforcement of federal immigration laws to less than the full extent permitted by federal law. We cannot create a sanctuary for people that are going to break the laws. And there's a process and a place to come here legally. I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, what message are we sending to those who come here legally? I know my next door neighbor is an immigrant, and she filed the paperwork, and she paid the money to come here legally. I'm more concerned about the safety and community, the safety of our neighborhoods and our communities, but also what message are we sending to people whenever we're saying you don't need to go through our federal process that we have in place to come here legally. So for that reason, Mr. Chairman, I move that we support this bill.
Thank you, Senator Chase. We have one left in the queue, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And laws are passed to address a specific problem. And other than the example cited by the patron of Arlington County requiring a warrant for an ICE detainer, which they are not prohibited by federal law from doing, that is the only example of an actual problem that this bill is attempting to solve. This bill is not about MS-13, although I know that is what is trotted out all the time as the boogeyman. But Virginia law requires that anyone taken into custody at a jail or prison have their immigration status checked. Virginia is one of the few states that have an explicit presumption against bail for anyone present in the United States without authority who is charged with certain crimes. We've had that since 2008. If anyone commits a crime and is suspected of being here illegally, there's already a process for that. But here's what this bill is going to do. If you are a victim of a crime, and let's be real, many gangs, including MS-13, target vulnerable, isolated communities, other immigrants. And they prey on their fear, and they are banking on the fact that their victim will be too afraid to report a crime to police or testify because they're afraid when they show up at the courthouse, ICE is going to be waiting for them. We've seen that happen in this country. They are afraid when they go to the hospital because they're sick or to get a transplant or life-saving care, that ICE is going to be waiting for them. And we've seen that in this country. They're concerned when members of the community who came here legally, but their papers expired, or something else got caught up in a system in Washington that is broken. They've been in the community for years. They're valuable members of the community. They could be college professors. They could be businessmen. They could be business owners, taxpayers. And they show up to drop their kids off at school, and ICE is waiting for them. We've seen that in this country. This bill does not solve a problem in Virginia. This is a message bill. And this bill sends a message to certain people: you're not welcome here. I'm trying my best not to get militant, but I saw Black Panther and Selma this weekend. And I've spent a lot of time reflecting on what has happened in this country in the past 50 years. And as a person of color who had family members who in some cases were scared to walk down the streets in Alabama, because if they looked at someone the wrong way, if they drank out of the wrong water fountain, if they sat in the wrong seat on a bus, they could be beaten or hung or worse. This is a message bill that will not make our communities safer. Whether you intend it or not, the message that this bill sends in the context in which this country is in right now, since the election of 2016, which the day after, when I dropped my son off at school, do you know what I saw? I saw people weeping, not just because of who won and who lost, but there were brown people, Hispanic people, working in that school who were terrified ICE was going to come and get them, whether they were here legally or not. And now we've seen in our schools horrific conversations of kids being told ICE is coming to get you, when these kids were born here. And as someone, every single person in this room, unless you are a direct descendant of a native Virginian, you're an immigrant. Many of your ancestors came here illegally or were brought here against their will. And so I think saying that we're trying to send a message, well, we want you to follow the law, this isn't about that, because people who do follow the law and are here legally, who were born here, are getting caught up. And this, I never thought in 2018 that I would see people in my communities, in my kids' school, on my street, who feel the same fear that my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather felt simply because they were Black. And that is why, whether you intend it or not, this bill sends a message we should not be sending in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2018, and I can't support it.
Thank you, Senator McClellan. I would speak. Speaking on the patron's behalf, I would just say I don't think he intended it the way that you were meaning it, but your words are powerful nonetheless. Is that correct, Senator Klein?
Yes.
Delegate Klein. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard this bill for 2 years. I see no one else in the queue.
Move to report.
Hold on. Senator Hanger, looking at the legislation, do you have an amendment to the legislation?
Mr. Chairman, I recall last year when we looked at this the second time before we reported it, an amendment was offered, which I thought brought more clarity to the intent, and that was to strike the end of it where it says to less than the full extent permitted by federal law. And that's actually the bill that we passed out of this committee last year, so I would move that amendment.
Thank you, Senator Hanger. Now, for the people of the committee, that would then make this bill read that no locality shall adopt any ordinance, procedure, or policy that restricts the enforcement of federal immigration laws, period. Is that how you intend it to be, Senator Hanger?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any questions about what this proposed amendment is or does to Senator Hanger or one of our staff? Do I have a motion to move the amendment?
So moved.
Motion being made. Is there a second? Second being made. Properly supported. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay? Ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Based on that amendment, ladies and gentlemen, is there a motion with regard to the bill? Motion report being made and second properly supported. Is there any discussion on that motion other than what we've already had? If not, clerk, open the roll. Oop.
7 ayes, 6 nays.
7 ayes, 6 nays. The bill reports, HB 1257 reports will be heard on the floor. Probably see you again in April on this one.
Chairman.
All right. Delegate Hugo is not here. Hugo. He's a busy guy. Let's try to help him on his timing. Delegate Hugo, you saw a bill there, 1241, which
Chairman.
just amazes me that we have to have this bill before.
Chairman,
But let's hear it.
baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie.
America.
So it's getting springtime. You go down, you're driving down the street, and you pass the gas station where the cheerleaders or the football team or the band is trying to raise money by a car wash, having a charity car wash. Technically, in Virginia, that's now illegal. DEQ, or about legislation, has been banned. DEQ has told some of the car washes, I know in Fairfax County at least, and others, that you can't do that anymore. So what this bill
And
would
why
do-
can't they do it, Delegate Hugo?
I think it's a regulatory interpretation.
Are they worried about more of the chemicals or whatever chemicals may be washing
And this-
down into
in
the
this
drains
bill,
and
what
out to
we
the
did,
watersheds?
just what they have said, you can have a charity car wash if you soak all the water up. Well, that's a little hard to do in a car, parking lot of a gas station, your local Shell station. What this bill does do, though, trying to acknowledge people's concerns, Mr. Chairman, is say, okay, you'll use biodegradable soap. So that could be like Dawn detergent, which they use on the ducks when they get oil on them. So
that.
things like that are biodegradable. Literally, this is just something so that these kids, cheerleaders can buy uniforms, the football team can buy equipment, and so the band can go to Florida. Not monumental, but important to a lot of kids.
Any questions of the patron?
Glad I live in Southwest Virginia.
Yeah, we don't have this problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Marsden.
Thank you. Delegate Hugo,
Yes, sir.
my understanding is the concern is not so much I think they appreciate the idea that we're not going to have, soap with phosphorus or other nasty things in it, but that it will loosen on those gas station asphalt surfaces, that it will loosen oil and other contaminants that will then be washed into the water system. Is that your understanding of one of the
That's not what
concerns?
they've said to me. I mean, it was some of the soaps, and that's why they wanted the biodegradable soaps. But I mean, if they have something else, that has not been expressed to me, Senator. I'm not saying that's not a rationale, but that's not been expressed to me.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Marsden. Anyone else have a question?
Mr. Chairman.
McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Quick question to the patron.
sir.
The origins of some of the issues resulted from EPA Region 3's rulings on what we've been releasing to the Chesapeake Bay over the last couple of years. And is that correct?
It may be, but that's why we try to do the biodegradable soap. I mean, we had, up in Northern Virginia, the Potomac, sometimes we have what do they call them, the algae blooms. And that's why this tries to do that. The biodegradable soap should avoid all that.
Follow, Mr.
Phosphorus.
Senator McPike. Mr. McPike.
Mr. Chairman, to the delegate, this is sort of an emerging issue. I mean, I think a lot of folks are identifying it in local governments. I know at fire stations, they also came by and said, here's some updated regulations. You should watch them inside. That way it goes into the sanitary system and be treated. Is that also some of your experience in Fairfax County and others? There's a sort of a wider array of issues because we do spend millions and millions of dollars, and in fact our state budget as well, to try to resolve these issues and improve the bay conditions.
I think we're all trying to improve the bay. What this simply is saying, and that's why in acknowledgement of any concerns, we did the biodegradable soap. But what they did, DEQ did say, you can have the charity car wash if you soak all the water up. That's a little hard for 17-year-old cheerleaders and band, mates to do, so.
Senator
One
McPike.
last follow-up, Mr. Chairman. They do have mobile wash bays that you can set up.
Yeah, but
There are commercial wash bays and other things that can be set up to
But these are
dam and
not
trap
commercial,
and or
these
filter.
are charity car washes. You're right, they do have the commercial ones that they can go and do that. But these are literally if you like, these are literally for the teenagers or your church. The church was doing it the other day, last fall, and I stopped by and did it. But again, in Fairfax County and now in other, coming soon to you in other jurisdictions, is a ban on charity car washes. This just tries to ameliorate. I think it's, I hear what you're saying about the wash into the bay. I think the amount that's going to emanate from the band who's just trying to get to Florida, money to get to Florida, is de minimis, and I would hope we'd move forward. But I appreciate all your questions. Yes, sir.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a question for the patron.
Yes, ma'am.
Delegate Hugo, I am reading this to mean that the locality would be able to determine sort of where this car washing could take place. So if they did have a Chest Bay ordinance that, you know, required no activity within 1,500 feet of the water or whatever, the locality would be able to exercise discretion over where this would be located, perhaps for how long, or quantities of material used or detergent used. I'm trying to figure out, the only thing that a locality under this language is they cannot ban it, but they can address other things.
Well, I'm sure Arlington would do very reasonable restrictions on any of these poor children's car washes. I have full faith in Arlington.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Favola.
Delegate Hugo should show more respect to Arlington County.
I do.
Let the record reflect that he was smiling and winked when he said Arlington, like we all do.
It was with love.
Arlington.
Senator Hugo, Delegate Hugo.
It was with affection.
Do localities, you know, when I remember in Northern Virginia growing up there, and then certainly with the volume of people now that are there that have almost postage stamp size yards and these big, large houses with setbacks and side setbacks at 10 feet or better. Do the localities restrict fertilizer on their yards? You know, like weed seed and feed stuff?
Some may. I don't know that. I don't know about that, sir.
I mean, but you would agree with me, that goes into the sewer systems.
That would too, yes, sir. And again,
would affect
I
the
think
TDML loads, right?
it's not like there's, I would just say, Mr. Chairman, to any concerns, it's not like there's a car wash, a charity car wash. It's not like the cheerleaders, the football team, the band are out there 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, 364 days a year. It's usually in the spring, they'll have these things and it's moving forward. It's really a small bill, I thought, just for the kids, so.
Delegate Hugo,
Yes,
do
sir.
any of any of the localities in Northern Virginia restrict Santa Claus from landing on roofs because it might present no? All right. Arlington does.
She said it, not me. I didn't say it. I didn't say a word.
Show some more respect for Arlington there, Senator Favola.
Show Arlington some love.
All right. I don't see any further questions. Diamond Dave. No questions? Anybody here want to speak in favor of the bill? Band members, Cub Scouts? Anyone want to speak against the bill? Oh.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm feeling very brave. And
You
I am
are.
a former band member, though we sold hoagies. Peggy Santa, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and I first want to thank Delegate Hugo for the part of his bill which clearly recognizes that there is a water quality issue. I think that some of the issue that he addressed is satisfied, in other words, phosphorus. There are other pollutants. Senator Marsden mentioned some that are implicated by car washes, even charity car washes. What this bill does is it clarifies that charity car washes are not like residential car washes in front of your house, totally not regulated, or commercial facilities which are regulated. This is an activity that falls in between. And I believe this bill would unduly interfere with the ability of localities addressing their local conditions, whether in Arlington, Ashland, or otherwise, to try to make sure that water quality is protected. DEQ does not regulate these car washes. What it does is it posts on its website guidelines. They exist now, and they work very well. So I would ask that the committee look with disfavor on this bill, recognizing there is not really a problem to be solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your advocacy for the
Mr.
Chesapeake Bay.
Chairman.
We appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a follow-up,
Yes.
I mean, I think the patron's intent is fairly well laid out, and my question to you is, if a facility had a modern BMP, which a lot of newer stations or new facilities that are out there within Fairfax, lots of other places, if you built within the last 15 years, you likely have a best managed BMP dealing with stormwater runoff issues. Would you object if it had BMPs included within that facility?
I think I'd
That
have.
way, that owner's taken on the onus of pre-filtering it before discharge. Just a question.
Mr. Chairman, from my perspective, of course, the kind of BMP, how effective they were and so forth would have to be examined. But I think that's the intent of the guidelines that DEQ has posted. It offers a suite of practices that are intended to either pre-filter, to ensure that the wastewater doesn't go directly into the sewer system. It may be directed, for example, onto a grassy area where it could infiltrate into the ground, a variety of BMPs. So. Thank you.
Senator McPike, thank you again. Thank you for your advocacy for the Chesapeake Bay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pat Calvert, played trumpet, love band, but on behalf of the Virginia Conservation Network's Legislative Committee, for the reasons that Ms. Sander just stated, we would also have to oppose the bill as written. Thank you.
Were you good?
No comment.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I have to take him as honest. So when he responds like that. Because if anybody played instruments up here on this panel, they think they were great. All right, any further questions of Delegate Hugo? I don't know that he has to close anymore. I think it's pretty well laid out. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion being made to report this bill, House Bill 1241, and a second properly supporting it. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, clerk, open the roll, please.
10 ayes, 3 nays.
10 ayes, 3 nays. House Bill 1241 passes. The cheerleaders and the band members, even the ones in the back, thank you very much for this bill. Thank you, Delegate Hugo. Always great to see you here, sir.
Mr. Chairman, does that mean you have to present this on the floor?
Oh, no, that does.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Because that's a kiss of death, right? All right. All right, Delegate Hope is the next in the queue. Delegate Hope has
Chairman.
2 bills.
Sure,
Why don't we
Mr.
take them
Chairman.
up in numerical order, if that's all right with you, 233?
Yes, sir. This is just a cleanup bill of the code. This came about when we were trying to determine if the section of the code applied to counties. And it had been a situation where the headings were mixed up, and this just clarifies that, so it's strictly clarify and measure only.
And this pertains to counties as it is to the creation of arts and cultural districts.
That's correct.
For those that may not know, what is an art and cultural district?
Maybe council can talk about, it's a specific designation where you can have a.
Jeff, welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Always
The
good to hear
bill-
from you, Jeff.
The bill itself spells out what an arts and cultural district shall be, and I'll just reiterate what the delegate said. This is actually current law, even though it shows as new language. It shows as new language because it's been relocated to a different section.
Very good. Any questions based on that
Mr. Chair-
explanation?
We have one in the city of Richmond if you want to go see it.
I would love to go. Are you
All right.
inviting me?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Proper
Maybe during
party for
Proffer
everybody.
Party. That's right. We will be having a cocktail party after Proffer Party. You're all invited. Maybe we'll do it in one of the cultural districts. All right. Any questions of the patron? Anyone want to speak in favor of the bill? Opposed to the bill? Don't care about the bill? Motion made to report this bill, a second properly supporting it. Is there any discussion on House Bill 233? Hearing none, clerk, open the roll. Boom. Close roll.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 233 has been reported out of this committee. You're 1 for 1. You want to try your luck, or you want good?
I'm going to try my luck, Mr. Chairman. One more. House Bill
796, ladies and gentlemen.
796, and there is a substitute.
Can we hand those to the little bailiffs? Bring a substitute in here. How dare you?
This is a fun committee, Mr. Chairman. I gotta commend
Oh,
you
thank
on
you. Well,
livening
it is
things
local
up.
government.
People don't fall asleep.
Well, we try to keep them awake and we try to keep them in here so they don't proxy out as much. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here by myself.
No, it's very
With
entertaining.
like 13 votes. All right. Well, you're very kind to say that. It is the people around us that make us most entertaining. Isn't that right, Dave Barry? You're a suck up, Dave Barry. All right. Let's see what you got here, Delegate Hope.
796. The reason for the substitute is the bill went pretty quickly through the House, but some of the disability community came to me and had some concerns about some of the provisions of the bill that we had put together, particularly with a provision that we've changed, the substitute, that talks about when you apply for a variance, someone with disabilities, that the legislation originally said that it shall go with the House, or rather go away with the House. We just say that it may expire. And so we changed the shall to may to expire. And the other thing that we did was we just made clear that this is in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act and the state and federal fair housing laws. I'll describe the problem how we think this bill solves that problem. Is that this came from one of our local zoning attorneys that does a lot of zoning variances in the Northern Virginia, and said that some jurisdictions are not granting variances for people with disabilities. We're talking about maybe ramps, either on the front of the house or the side of the house, maybe some extension of the driveway past the setback.
Something that would be non-conforming otherwise in an ordinance and what other kind of zoning they might have, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right, that seems pretty clear. Anybody have questions, the patron? So far, so good. Anybody want to speak in favor of the bill? Mr. Dix.
Chairman.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How about you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Nice tie.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Didn't wear my sport coat today, so.
I know. Again, you kind of disappoint me with your bland look, but let's see how you do.
Well, I may need to sit down right now, right?
You can go home and get it and come back.
Okay.
We can pass the bill by for temporarily.
So I'm here on behalf of the Realtors and the Northern Virginia Apartment Association, and we support the bill. Mr. Chairman, there's a concern about the BZA portion of the bill that begins on line 36. And the concern that Delegate Hope and I have discussed is that this would perhaps on reasonable accommodations under the Fair Housing Law indicate that those needed to go to the BZA as opposed to being handled administratively. And so if there's a concern on the committee, then what we would suggest is that you pass the bill, but perhaps send lines 36 and the BZA portion to the Housing Commission to look at, to determine whether there's a way that we can make sure that localities do not, Mr. Chairman, that begins on line 36 of the substitute.
Where it says Powers and Duties Board of Zoning Appeals.
Correct. And the concern among some housing professional real estate organizations is that what this would say is that a reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Law, that request would not be able to be handled administratively at the staff level. It would have to go to the BZA. I think the intent of the requestor of this bill, who happens to be a client of ours and a joint friend with Delegate Hope, his intent is that if a request needs to go to the BZA, then what would happen is that you would then have the authority at the BZA level to grant a variance in consideration of the need for reasonable accommodation. So I think the goal is good. I am concerned a little bit about the language of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Do you have corrective language that Delegate Hope has looked at or would be willing to consider?
So, Mr. Chairman, Delegate Hope and I and some others had a meeting the other day, and Delegate Hope feels like that in order to accomplish the goal of the requestor of the legislation, his constituent, that he needs to go forward with the Board of Zoning Appeals piece of the legislation.
Okay.
So I don't have any language in that regard.
And there's no chance of coming to an agreement here today?
I think we can always reach agreement on
Okay.
something, Mr. Chairman. But
we're not going to do anything to your bill that you don't want.
We do have
to
a difference of opinion. I mean, I in meeting with the advocates and even the VML who can come speak in the AG's office, we don't read it the same way that Chip does. that you have to his concern, and it would be a concern of mine, that any modification that you want to make to your home, that you automatically have to go to the zoning board. I don't believe the bill says that. I believe that only in those cases where you need to, then that's where this language comes in. But I don't think it says that if you want to change put bars on your bathroom, that you have to go get a variance.
All right, I got to go
That
present a bill,
doesn't
so I'm going to turn this
concern me.
over to Steph, but thank you. We're not going to make an amendment to his bill unless he says it's a friendly one. That's just not
Understand.
the way
So,
we do it
Mr.
here.
Chairman, to accomplish that, all I would say is that if we said something like, nothing herein shall be construed to require a request for reasonable accommodation to be considered by the Board of Zoning Appeals, perhaps that would be something that I think would address that concern and still allow Delegate Hope's bill to go forward.
Yeah, I would be fine with that, because again, the problem that we're seeing is that people are applying for variances who have disabilities, and they're being denied. And so I think unless we make that amendment, we still haven't solved the problem, and we could wait a year, but I'd rather not do that. That is the problem we're trying to solve.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sturdivant.
So Delegate Hope, you were fine with that language that Mr. Dix just recommended? Okay. If it possible, if the council could report that, I'd move that language.
Council, first, can you report that language in the, I believe it's paragraph 1, line 36?
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know exactly where Jeff would suggest we put it, but the language would read something like, nothing herein contained shall be construed to require a request for reasonable accommodation to be considered by the Board of Zoning Appeals, something to that effect. That way, most localities handle requests for reasonable accommodations for a ramp. They handle it administratively. And again, that's not Delegate Hope's intent to force everything to go to the BZA, but if you say it has the authority, the BZA had the authority, then that would be a concern.
I mean, I think you might be able to say at the end at line 69.
If I could, Jeff, if we take this by temporarily, we do another bill and then come back to this, do you think you'll have that in proper order, or are you ready now in proper order?
I think we can go ahead and read it right now. if you
Okay.
like. I would suggest on line 69, after fair housing laws, period, add a new sentence reading, nothing herein shall be construed to require a request for a reasonable accommodation to be heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Michelle Gowdy, VML. The only thing I'd say about that is when the Attorney General looked at it, they wanted to use the word modification, not accommodation, because they're both terms of art. Because modification had been used previously in the amendment, they wanted to continue that same language. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's fine, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Jeff, can you read it one more time with the term modification? instead
Line
of
69,
accommodation?
after laws, period, insert nothing herein shall be construed to require a request for a reasonable modification to be heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, does everybody have that? Any questions? You have the amendment?
I move that amendment.
Second.
Yeah, after the amendment.
Got it. So the amendment's properly in front of us. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there anyone else want to speak for?
Michelle Gowdy, VML. We've worked with Delegate Hope from the beginning on this bill, and we fully support his concept, and he's been really kind to work with, so we support the bill.
Great. Kudos to you, Delegate Hope. Is there anyone who wants to speak against this measure? So this committee operates on a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Whoops. Senator Donovan.
Yes, Delegate Hope, I'm going to vote against this with no intent to harm it because I like the idea, but I have some specific complaints and concerns from my counties. I think it's on language, maybe a few amendments back.
Yeah.
I think this bill's probably been amended a few times.
Yeah.
So I just need to verify before it gets to the floor that that language has been addressed, and if not, I'll get back to you.
All right. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it.
Got it. Is there any other member who wishes to speak? Okay. So we have the substitute in front of us as properly amended. Oh, I'm sorry. We need to adopt the
Adopt.
substitute as amended.
And then move it.
Got it. Okay.
Second.
We have a first and a second. So all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Got it.
You want to move the report?
So now we have a motion in front of us. Let's open the rolls. Oh, I'm sorry.
Move to report.
Move
And I
the report.
seconded
Got
that.
it. Second. So it reports
12 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. David Hope. Next, we have Delegate James. Delegate James. And then we have Delegate Bell. Delegate James, we have House Bill 1452.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. As we've discussed during this session, one of the most pressing problems we have in Virginia as it competes for new jobs and investment is a lack of developable sites. And this legislation will be one piece of the puzzle to encourage more economic development in the Commonwealth. The Regional Industrial Facilities Act was enacted in 1997 to encourage localities to work together on economic development activities by creating a framework for multiple localities to form an authority to develop industrial sites. House Bill 1452 makes it easier to create these authorities by lowering the threshold for creating these authorities from at least 3 to 2. It also makes it consistent with the guidelines used by Go Virginia to facilitate joint activities. I know you guys are long and pressed for time. We do have several people to support. This is an administration bill. It was supported by the Virginia Economic Developers Association and a lot of other friendly faces.
So we have House Bill 1452. We have all those that wish to speak in favor of the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Mike Woods. I'm with Troutman Sanders Strategies. We represent the Virginia Economic Developers Association. And Delegate James is absolutely correct that one of the critical needs facing Virginia as we compete for jobs and investment is sites or ready sites. And what this bill does or attempts to do is make it so that 2 or more localities instead of 3 or more can work together in a regional industrial facilities act and attract more businesses to the Commonwealth. The other thing that Delegate James said is that this will align the RIFA language in the code with what's going on in Go Virginia. So if it's your pleasure, I'd appreciate you supporting the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Woods. Next.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with Virginia Association of Counties, and for the reasons stated, we also support. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none. Delegate James?
I thank the committee, and I would hope that you would look favorably on this piece of legislation.
Great. Second. I move to report a second. Let's open the rolls. Delegate James, have a wonderful day. Looks like 13-0.
Thank you. I thank the committee.
Thank you. Next we have Delegate Bell.
Stood up and I realized there's 3 of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Delegate Robert Bell. Delegate Robert B. Bell.
Thank you.
Delegate Ring My Bell.
I'll take, if it gets me to the front of the line, I can take
Stanley's
that.
better at humor. What can I say?
All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is one of those unintended consequences bills from last year. So since 1908, you've needed a referendum to move a courthouse, and there was an issue that I don't even remember what the specifics were, but Delegate Ranson had an issue. They were moving it from one part of the county to another part of the county, and she brought a bill that said we shouldn't do a referendum if it's just from within the county to another part of the county. And what she didn't intend, and none of us thought could possibly apply, was to those places where there's a little piece of county property inside a city, and the Albemarle County immediately took steps to try to move the courthouse without having a referendum. I don't think it was the intention of the original bill, so I'm not even trying to undo what she did. I'm just saying you probably didn't mean to apply to us. But at least some people think you did. That would be a topic for litigation, but we're just trying to back the clock up a year and say we should have had a more careful delineation of what the original bill did so it wouldn't have possibly applied to Albemarle County, and that's what the bill would do. This says that it's sort of an exception to an exception bill. It doesn't undo what was done last year. It just says, however, if in fact there is property which is entirely surrounded by a city, the original rule applies and you don't get this new exception that came up last year. That's the bill. I'm not aware of any opposition in this body. There certainly is opposition among our supervisors. Delegate Toscano and I are both supporting this measure. Thank you.
Great. Is there anyone in opposition to this? Is there anyone in the audience in favor of this? Brevity is best if you have no opposition.
I understand. My name is Bruce Williamson. I'm the Courts Location Committee Chair of the Charlottesville Albemarle Bar Association. We wholeheartedly support this legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Delegate McClellan.
I have a question for council or staff. Is this similar to a bill we already passed?
I think so.
Different courthouse, I believe, but Jeff?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator Hanger had a bill that dealt with a different aspect of this law, dealt with expanding onto contiguous property and how that would not trigger the referendum.
Okay, so these are not in conflict. Okay, move to report.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Clerks, open the roll.
Hopefully next year you won't have the exception to the exception to the exception bill. Hope we're as narrow as we can be. Thank you.
Does anyone have Senator Chase's proxy? All right, clerks, close.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Bell. Let's see. Oops, let me go. Next, we have Delegate Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I have House Bill 161, which I know this is famous last words, but as far as I know, there is no opposition to it. What it would simply do is add general government facilities to the items that may be paid for by a special service district that's imposed by a locality. As you may recall, a year or so ago when the proffers reform legislation was passed that did restrict somewhat localities' ability to get funds to pay for facilities from developers, and I think this is kind of a reasonable compromise to allow general government facilities within a district to be paid for by the service district. And again, often those facilities tend to be kind of an economic driver for the area, and I hope you will look favorably upon it.
Do you have any questions of the patrons? Do we have anyone in the audience wishing to oppose this bill? Do you have anyone in the audience wishing to support this bill? Hearing none, this
Mr.
committee
President,
operates on a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question for the patron. In your opening, you said that this is in relation to proffers, and so...
No, this is kind of, well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, this has nothing to do with proffers. When the General Assembly passed the proffer reform legislation, what was it, either 2 years ago, I think it was, that greatly restricted local government's ability to get money from developers through proffers. And sometimes that money was used to build general government facilities. And so I think, to kind of help localities out without affecting the proffer law at all, one route for them to be able to raise funds to build these facilities is through special service districts.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate McPike. I'm sorry, Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions of no harm to the patron.
Sure.
On the bill, just understanding how some of the service districts are implemented as well as the tax structure in relation to them. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, localities, have the ability to establish service districts to pay for certain things. I know a lot of localities will use them for like road improvements and things like that. And what they do is they impose an additional tax on top of their base real estate tax. maybe 5 cents, 10 cents, whatever is needed to pay the debt service on the facility that they're paying for.
Delegate McPike, anything else?
No, Delegate D. Steph, thank you.
I'm sorry, Senator McPike, as you were. We have a motion to report. And Senator Hanger seconds that. Any debate, any discussion? Clerk, open the roll.
Oh. 13 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Delegate
Thank you.
Cole. Next, we have Delegate Price. Delegate Price, we've got House Bill 1183.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, currently the city of Hampton has an average of 20,000 violations per year based on the 2014 to 2017 numbers, and it is more than their current workforce can handle. Unfortunately, at this time, Hampton is not able to add to their workforce for this specific item due to budgetary constraints, but what HB 1183 would do is allow for Hampton to be included in the cities allowed to utilize trained, supervised, and qualified volunteers to issue notices of noncompliance with zoning ordinances relating to the external maintenance of property or local zoning ordinances related to motor vehicles and trailers. Hampton is poised and ready to train the volunteers that have already expressed an interest in this type of program, and they have discussed best practices with other cities that have implemented these type of volunteer programs. And so really HB 1183 would help the city of Hampton accomplish its workload in a cost-effective manner.
Great. Is there any questions of the patron? Anyone in opposition in the audience? Anyone in favor in the audience? Anything but crickets in the audience?
I have the city of Hampton with me, but they are not, of course.
Great, not a problem. We have a motion to report. We have a second. Any discussion? Clerks, open the roll.
12 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you.
Great job. You're out of here, Delegate Price. Next, we have Delegate Kilgore.
I'm subbing for Delegate Campbell, who's not here today. He has
House Bill
1450. And basically what this deals with is BVU, the Bristol Virginia Utilities Authority. We created the authority in 2001, and they expanded broadband, and now they're in the process of selling that part of the business. There was some issues beginning in 2014 about some investigation of allegations of corruption. Some folks, and all that happened.
Kilgore, I think it was 2013, 2014, 2011, 2015, 2000.
Yes, so so anyway, last year, Delegate Carrico brought a bill that revamped the whole, Senator Carrico revamped the whole board, and we got all that completed, and now they're in the process of selling. The Tobacco Commission, of course, had money in this. The Federal Trade Commission has approved it. The Cumberland Plateau Planning Edition approved it. The Virginia Coalfield Coalition's approved it, and all these other stakeholders is selling it. The Attorney General's gave us an opinion on that they could sell its assets, has negotiated in the transaction without utilizing the Procurement Act. But to be safe, we thought we better bring a bill to the BVU wanted us to make sure we brought a bill to make sure that it was good to go. And that was an informal opinion by the Attorney General that they had the statutory authority to sell its assets without a public procurement bidding process. And some question, some of the lawyers wasn't 100% for sure on that. So that's why we're bringing this bill, or Delegate Campbell brought this bill. Everybody's in agreement to it now. They did strike out part of the bill, so it now only deals with the public procurement issue. That's it.
Great, thank you, Delegate Kilgore. Any
And that's
questions
about
of
all I
Delegate
know about
Kilgore?
the bill, too.
Any questions of Delegate Kilgore?
Mr. Chair.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and maybe Senator Carrico may know the answer. BVU is also selling some of the assets in relation to telecom, broadband, et cetera. That's a part of this legislation?
Yeah, they're getting out of,
Okay, so that's a part of the asset they're selling.
They're selling all that. All that they're going to be in from now on is just electricity and water and sewer. I would think that's it.
Okay. And follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this the last piece of BVU legislation we're going to see?
I hope so, because I haven't brought any of it, but I hope so.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Senator Favola.
I'm going to move that we report the bill.
Okay, we have a motion to report. We have a second. Anyone in the audience in opposition to the bill? Anyone in favor?
Unlike most of my bills, usually they're lining up.
Got it. Well, we have a motion properly in front of us. Clerk, open the roll.
Thank you. Thank you.
11 ayes, 1 nay, 1 abstention.
Did we just expand Medicaid? No. Oh, okay, just checking. We're not going to Kentucky either.
No.
So next we have with us Delegate Arid.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. You should have House Bill 1132 before you, a very simple bill. 1132 just provides that at least 4 members of the 7-member Dinwiddie Airport and Industrial Authority Board shall be residents of the County of Dinwiddie, and removes the requirement that 1 member is a resident of the City of Petersburg. Currently, the authority limits its membership to only 4 board members from Dinwiddie County, and the authority also requires a representative from the City of Petersburg, which is no longer required.
Well, thank you very much, Delegate Arid. Any questions of the committee? We have a motion in front of us properly seconded. Anyone in the audience in opposition to this? Anyone in the audience in favor of this? Clerk, open the roll.
I thank the committee.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Next, we have Delegate Brewer with House Bill 1560.
Hello, Chairman, members of the committee. I have House Bill 1560, which is just a technical change to allow locality representatives to sit on SIPSA with an unexpired term.
Delegate Brewer, this is definitely not your first bill in front of us.
Thank
You were
goodness.
very fortunate this year. Oh, this is your first bill in front of us.
In local government, yes.
Oh, how about that? Any questions of the patron other than what does SIPSA stand for?
Southeastern Public Service Authority.
And, oh, wow. Delegate Brewer, and when was it established? How many
Before I was
members are
born.
on it?
Before I was born.
How many jurisdictions are
I
involved?
believe 7.
I believe you may want to count one more time. Delegate Brewer, I used to
8,
serve on
excuse
SIPSA.
me.
There we go. You forgot all the right, I bet. Any questions of the patron?
Move to report.
Okay. Anyone in the audience in opposition besides those 17 people with their coming up behind you right now? Anyone in support of this? We have a motion properly in front of us. Clerk, open the roll.
Twelve ayes, 1 nay.
Wow, it looks like Senator Stanley will be
Thank you very
explaining a lot
much.
of bills on the floor.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Delegate Carr with House Bill 592.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Before you is House Bill 592. It's a very simple cleanup bill that makes a technical amendment to a bill we passed last year. It simply changes the word authority on line 22 to land bank entity. This is believed to have been an oversight, as the word authority does not relate to land bank operations. The bill is supported by the realtors.
Sorry, Delegate Carr, just trying to work on some house cleaning real quick. Amendment? No, we're good. So we have, is there anyone that wishes to speak for the bill? Any questions of the patron? I know there's no opposition for you, Delegate Carr, at all. There never is. Okay, we have the bill properly in front of us. Clerk, open the roll.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Delegate Carr, you are out of here.
Thank you very much.
Delegate Boysko. Pillion's across the way. You tell him to come over here. Nope. We're not letting Carrico do Pillion's bill. Nope. No, sir. You can get him over here.
Hey.
No, he's across the street. Go ask him. Hi, Delegate. How are you?
I'm fine.
It's
How are
great to
you?
see you.
Good to see you too.
Delegate Boysko, what wonderful, incredibly great bill do you have today?
I have HB 640.
Okay.
It would add broadband infrastructure to future comprehensive plans for local governments. I'm a member of the Broadband Advisory Council and aware that there are regions of Virginia that don't have access to affordable broadband, and that's why I'm bringing this bill to the body here. As written, as amended in the House, the bill does not require that broadband strategic plans be placed. It's a permissive bill. In the spirit of comprehensive planning, it's intended to ensure all localities consider the community goals and priorities as broadband infrastructure unfolds. My goal with this bill is to take a step to help localities plan for future broadband infrastructure. It's clear that communications technology will increasingly be important to economic and social well-beings of all of our localities in Virginia. And I, hope that it is the pleasure of this committee to report HB 640 to the Senate floor.
Thank you, Delegate Boysko. Is there any questions of the patron? Delegate Boysko, I have one.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at this, and I just think this is an incredibly strong bill. I think it's an excellent piece of legislation that you've come up with, and I think it helps every locality create comprehensive plans for broadband, which is so important in my area, especially where broadband is sometimes far
Absolutely.
between. And I think this should be not a may. And what bothers me about this bill, the only thing, and it's not to hurt the bill, is that it seems permissive and not. I think I'm not the greatest guy to tell the localities what to do all the time. But I think in this instance, this bill becomes so much stronger and better if that may is changed to shall, Dave. And that way, they've got to come up with a comprehensive plan that reflects exactly what you're talking about. Wouldn't you agree with me?
That's actually, when I went back and looked through my notes, that was my original
Your original
language.
was
Was a shall, and just let me add that we included that the Center for Innovative Technology, which works on broadband expansion, would be an asset for any locality, so there shouldn't be an extra cost.
So the CIT too does the cost, that
Right.
eats the cost and performs the work, right?
Right,
So that's
yes.
not bad, right? It's not going to
So-
cost them anything by saying you got to,
Correct,
rather than you shoulda or you maya.
correct.
Am I right? Right, there you go. So I would entertain a motion that we change Dave, where would the change of mays to shall occur?
Mr. Chairman, that would be on line 85. We would just unstrike shall include and strike may consider.
Excellent. Is that a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Motion being made on the amendment to strike may consider and remove and unstrike shall conclude being made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor to adopt the amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. And that amendment is adopted. Is there anyone who wants to speak for the bill, huh? Yeah, I got a grumbling over there. Did you see Mr. Lurch was suddenly straightening up a little bit there? All right. Speaking in favor of the bill, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, Ray Lemura, President of the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. I have the pleasure of serving on the Broadband Advisory Council with Delegate Boysko, and this is an initiative that has been discussed at the Broadband Advisory Council, and I applaud the delegate for bringing this forward. The VCTA supports this legislation.
Thank you. Ray, were you just trying to take credit for her great bill? I mean, Okay, just checking. This is Boysko's great bill.
Thank you,
And we're
Mr.
going to leave
Chairman.
it that way. Yes.
Sorry, members of the committee. I'm Mindy Carlin. I represent the Northern Virginia Chamber Partnership, 6 chambers of commerce in Northern Virginia. We also support this legislation. We supported it when it was a may, and we support it when it's a shall.
Excellent. Thank you, Mindy. Always good to see you. Uh-oh, here we go.
You did mention my name,
Lurch.
so thank you. Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch, Virginia Association of Counties. We thank the delegate for working with us in incorporating the May. It is an improvement to have the CIT there as a resource. Just, I think we need to go back and talk to our localities with this change now and just see if they're comfortable with it. By way of kind of history, there was several years ago a requirement that comp plans in the Hampton Roads Planning District or the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Areas, I forget which one, should include recurrent flooding as part of their comp plans. I think Senator Lewis remembers that. And as part of that, there was a shall upon the VMRC to provide the resources to localities to do that. And so I think the concern here is, they may consult, but is there a real commitment from the Commonwealth to maybe help localities with that? And we'd be willing to work with the committee and with the delegate on trying to maybe solidify that at that now. So it's just a concern raised here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lurch. Always good to see you, sir. Always very cogent. I'm going to miss you for a year. Yes, all right, not a year.
Mr. Chairman, Michelle Gowdy, Virginia Municipal League.
Uh-oh.
We had understood that you were going to change it to a shall, but we thought it was still going to be shall consider. And we're certainly supportive of the shall consider, but once the consider goes away, then that causes significant concern, especially for our smaller localities, because there's a potential that that could have a financial burden on them. And so for that reason, we don't agree to the consider piece.
Okay, now, ma'am, you would agree in Code Section 15.2-2223, there are about 15 shalls in here, right?
Yes.
I mean, just by way of example, the locality shall submit a copy of the adopted transportation plan. You agree with
Yes.
that? In Section 6, each locality's amendments or updates shall be made on before a scheduled date, right? You don't have a problem with that, do you?
Well, we did at the time when they were enacted.
I'm sure
Yes,
you
sir, we
did. See, don't we get into them? And finally, the comprehensive plan with accompanying maps, plats, charts, and descriptive matter shall show the locality's long-range recommendations and the general development of territory covered by the plan. Right?
Yes, and at the time, we objected to those as well, I'm sure.
So you don't like shall, do you?
We don't like the Christmas tree effect of the shell.
You don't like
But shall
shall.
consider certainly is appropriate.
You only like May. Is that why they hold their elections in May in localities?
There you
It's
go.
May. All right, Senator McPack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for the speaker. I guess for VML and VACO, you've had a number of pieces of legislation dealing with broadband and telecom that have passed these bodies pretty resoundingly. And the only way that you can deal with it, is it not true, is through comp plans and issues that many localities have not adopted.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator McPike, I would now argue that we can't even deal with it in our comp plan because of the wireless bill, which is taking away local authority for the under 50-foot poles. And that's a significant concern for us because now they can go in our right-of-way without a proper review at our local zoning, and there's no public input from our citizens. So it takes away the comp plan essentially in that bill.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up question. Actually,
Senator McDuff. I'm Pike.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Stanley. Actually, those bills actually have pretty, well, I don't agree with all of them. They do provide a context of which you can lay out through the comp plan process if it exists, and there's some 3-month and 6-month rule exemptions that are in there for localities to start to implement it. And frankly, the reason why this legislation is on the table, and this is a good bill, is because localities haven't acted. And VACO and VML haven't been sitting up and speaking with a resounding voice on this issue. And this is a message to your members that you guys got to get your act together on this because you guys have missed the boat on much of this. And I'm going to support the shall include on this because you guys have got to get up to speed on this stuff.
Well, Chairman Stanley, if I can, just Senator McPike, can clarify one thing. The 3-month piece in that is only undergrounding. It doesn't deal with the 50-foot towers and the review everywhere else. It only deals with the undergrounding.
Shall we continue?
Just one more follow-up. There's probably a
Senator
reason
McPike.
why, Mr. Chairman, and it's got that because the localities haven't dealt with it.
I love it when Jeremy's passionate. Gosh, unbelievably hot. All right, anybody against this bill other than, we really could,
Support the bill.
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I walked in a little late. Mike Forehand with the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce. We support the bills both ways, shall or may or whatever.
excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? If you dare, I see the Fairfax County not getting up. No, hey. I'm a glutton for, hey, this may be the last time till Crawford.
And she's fantastic.
She is.
And we, right now, our board has a position to support the bill.
Oh, hey, see? I like that. County, all right, anybody else? Seeing none, we work by a motion.
Move to report.
Motion is made to report this very fine bill, HB 640. Is there a second? As amended. Any second. The second being properly supported. Is there any discussion on that motion? And the second, hearing none. Clerk, please open the roll.
Twelve ayes, 0 nays.
12
1
ayes,
abstention.
0 nays. HB 640 sails right out of here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you threw a no-hitter here today. Congratulations. I don't have to speak about it on the floor, but you have a very good bill here.
Thank you.
We're excited about what you're doing. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate, I got Price here. Price? Pillion? Delegate Pillion. Come on down. Everybody's leaving when they hear your name. What's up with that?
It happens.
Delegate Pillion, welcome.
Thank you.
Does this have a budget amendment or need to go to finance?
It does not.
Hey, by the way, Emmett, how did you do today?
You know what? Based on your performance, I got my bill out.
Oh, Jesus. I just,
It was like they were taking turns. Who kills this?
yeah, create the wave for you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 1154.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a bill that's cleanup from last year when the authority was created.
And
while
that was
we-
your bill, was it not?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was. So while we intended the authority last year to have the ability to apply for grants and seek other financial assistance all along, that specific language was not included. So this authorizes the Virginia Coalfields Expressway Authority to apply for and accept grants and gifts to carry out its powers and duties, much like West Virginia already has.
And Mr. Chairman,
Senator Kirko.
is it not true that if someone wanted to give land to the Coalfield Expressway Authority right now, without this legislation, they couldn't accept that as a gift?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kirko, that is correct.
Really? Delegate Pillion, do you anticipate gifts being made in that variety?
I would.
We're
love
very
to think that
generous
could happen.
people.
Okay. Any questions to the patron?
I have a question.
Ooh, Senator Hanger.
Well, it's sort of related, but I was wondering if you could get people to give land to the park that we're trying to create along Clinch River down there.
Senators, Mr. Chairman, Senator Hanger, I would not be aware of anybody that would donate the land to the park down there.
Okay,
So,
just asking.
Any other questions?
I guess a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Macduff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for the patron, just curious, and no harm, so this allows for private owners to also, for instance, contribute land for a future highway? Is that the idea?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McPike, the land is only one component of that. The bigger component is if there's federal infrastructure funds that Virginia can apply for that are finally released from the administration, we need an avenue to apply for those funds, and this would allow that.
Okay, follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pike.
My only question is, I guess, is how does this influence for instance, highway study, route, cost impact study? My jurisdiction in the 60s had a lot of landowners that gained tremendous amount of value for where the highway went. And so I'm not trying to dig into anything, just a cautionary tale of how this influences sort of the route process and to help to educate.
Are you asking, does it go through the Carico farm?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to kind of give you a background, a lot of Coalfield Expressway, and I don't know if Donnie is still here or not, but he could answer more of that question. A lot of the Coalfield Expressway was all started out in old coal bed areas where they had mines. So a lot of those coal mines that were owned by coal companies that did a bed for the mining purposes, if you don't add gifts to this, they couldn't turn around and give that property to the Coalfield Authority, to Expressway Authority, to allow those roads to be built on. And, you know, you have a lot of that, more than you do private property, which you're relating to in your area.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the,
Center Peak.
Thank you, Stan Me. It is, no, I appreciate the question. That's helpful. I just want to make sure that it did not necessarily change direction of the highway one way or the other on it. If that's the case, that's fine. And I appreciate the clarity on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, the path, just to follow up, the path of the Coalfield Expressway was determined several years ago and will not change because of the design cost that's already been incurred.
Anything else, Senator McDougal? It's the last bill of the year for us. I mean, come on, we're a little punchy. That's why we're bringing you in, Pillion. We weren't going to let Carico do this.
I appreciate that.
All right, any further questions of the patron? Seeing none, is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this bill? Any one of Carico's relatives who want to give land to this bill? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition? Paige, do you want to speak in opposition? No, Paige is good with this? You good with it? Sure.
Okay.
That's how we rule.
Teddy's dad. You better be saying yes.
Oh, now you're pulling in the, inside baseball. So you think it's good, Bill, Paige?
And nonpartisan staff.
I'm sorry, what?
And nonpartisan staff.
He plays it by the rules, plays it right by the book. Jeez. All right, we operate by motion on the last bill of the 2018 Senate Local Government Committee. Move to report being made second properly supported for HB 1154. Are there any other comments on the motion? Hearing none, clerk, open the roll. Are you
12
really?
ayes, 1 nay.
12 ayes, 1 nay. HB 1154 reports. Thank you, Delegate Pillion. I'm glad your bills worked out a little better over here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this docket. We've gotten through all of our bills this year with little controversy. I want to thank staff. Young man, step up here. Where's your page friend? Oh my goodness. Do we need an Amber Alert? Young man, come to the podium right here. Pull the microphone down. I want you to tell us who you are and where you're from. And we want to thank you for being our page here in the committee. Come on, big guy, right up to the podium, just like everybody else. What's your name?
Sean Bender-Prouty from Arlington.
From Arlington. Oh, a lot of impactful things happened with regard to where you are. Yeah, what are your feelings about the taxation of the Army-Navy Country Club? Not as open space, but developed. You have an opinion on that? Don't say nonpartisan staff again. All right, but I really want to say a real great thank you to the staff. You guys have been great. You're always a lot of fun to be with. And members of this committee, you've done a wonderful job as always. I remind you, proffer party, day before it reconvenes, so make your plans now. We'll either do it in the morning or afternoon based on when McDougal wants to do his rules committee. And then we're having a cocktail party after that. So thank you all. And with that, the committee shall rise.